Hello, I'm Liam, and welcome to my video review of RainPoint's Smart Plus garden watering system. This video features the RainPoint Irrigation Display Hub, which shows weather information combined with how much water is being used by the watering system. It also covers the RainPoint 2-zone Wi-Fi water timer controller that makes it possible to control two separate drip irrigation systems from one tap. If using a mobile phone to turn off and on a tap is of interest, then please continue to watch the video. And the video also takes a look at the RainPoint Flow Meter that simply measures the water being used during watering, from when the tap is opened to when it is closed. In the video, I show how I've set this up at home and my experience doing it, and at the end of the video, I'll summarise what I think of it. Please note that this is based on my first impression, as I'm making this video after only having had the product for a few days. And for context, I want to say that I haven't paid for or bought the products myself. RainPoint have kindly sent the products to me free of charge, and as I think their products are potentially of interest for people who watch my videos, I decided to make this video. Please note, I make my videos on my own, and all the comments I make in this video are my personal opinions, and not those of RainPoint. I regularly post videos to YouTube, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, for more content on growing fruit, vegetables and herbs, you may like to see my website, allotmentbook.co.uk. Before looking at RainPoint's products, I think it's helpful to start with why drip irrigation systems are useful. It's now mid-June and the weather has turned really warm, and that means the work of keeping plants alive through watering becomes a big focus. Over the years, I've developed a strong liking for automatic watering systems, and that's for several reasons. The first one is personal enjoyment. When the weather is at its hottest, my plants need the most water, sometimes twice a day. But watering by hand is hard work, and even harder in humid and warm temperatures that requires carrying heavy watering cans all around the garden and allotment. And this hard work takes time that could be spent doing other things. The second reason is that I've learned that watering by hand is not as effective, and by that I mean not as good for the plants, as consistent watering using drip irrigation systems. By hand, I am inconsistent with my watering, sometimes watering twice a day and sometimes not, as sometimes other things in life take priority. And when watering by hand, a lot of water is applied at once, meaning that a good deal of it washes away. And that brings me to my third reason, that of water wastage. By dripping water slowly at specific time intervals in a day, much less water is lost to runoff. It's an ideal combination of healthier plants growing in consistently moist soil, and with less water usage. And then there is my final reason, which is the deal maker for me. And it's simply that I like to go away sometimes, whether for the weekend or on holiday. I don't want my plants to die when I'm away. An automatic watering system means that I don't need to be at home to care for my plants. Before showing the RainPoint products, I want to share my experience with using drip irrigation, as my comments on their products will be based on how I want to use them. I have been a frequent user of drip irrigation systems in my polytunnel on my allotment. In fact, I created my own DIY solar-powered drip irrigation system using a solar panel, a leisure battery and a water butt pump. And if you'd like to see this video, I'll link to this in the video description. But I see RainPoint's products being most useful for me at home. I've tried many solutions at home, but over the last few years, I've consistently used a combination of soaker hose drip irrigation to keep my herbaceous perennials alive in my flower borders, and a network of drippers for my annual flowers that are mostly grown in pots on a patio, together with a few hanging baskets. And with this context, it's time to get to the main event and take a look at the products RainPoint have sent me. The RainPoint Irrigation Display Hub features a large colour display. I measured the screen at about 16 centimetres or 6 inches wide and 9 centimetres or 3.5 inches high. It is powered by an adapter that plugs into the back of the weather station. I really like the design of the battery panel. It was easy to remove simply by sliding away, and inside of it there is a connector for the power cable. Although the display hub does take batteries, the instructions say it is best to use the power adapter. The batteries are there to help when there's a power outage. On the display, it shows a 2-day weather summary and the current outdoor temperature and humidity, as well as the indoor temperature and humidity of the room where the display is located. The current time, date and day of the week are also shown. The outdoor temperature is calculated from an online weather service, just like the weather I check on my phone. I think this is worth saying, as it's not a weather station that has a sensor that needs to be positioned outside. But the addition of the weather forecast I think is a really nice touch, as it's convenient to have it always on display. Another nice feature is that the brightness of the screen can easily be adjusted. In the centre of the screen is the information specific to the Smart Garden watering system. This includes the next scheduled time for the watering system to start and how much water was used in the last watering. The RainPoint 2-zone water timer is both a water splitter or manifold that is able to run 2 hose networks from one tap, and also a watering computer or controller set by a mobile phone app that makes it possible to create plant-specific watering schedules for each of the 2 networks. It is powered by 4 AA batteries that are inserted into the back of the water timer. I like the way the battery compartment is screw-free. The cover has raised handles that allows it to be eased off, and around the edge of the cover is some plastic or rubber edging that makes the compartment watertight. Without drawing direct comparisons, my experience with water timers has been mixed. Whilst other timers I've used have always been reliable, one issue I've experienced is that the text or words printed next to or on the buttons of one of my timers disappeared. I think the text was either washed off or perhaps the sun bleached the ink until it disappeared. Either way the text went. What this means is that when changing settings, I have to remember what each button does or use trial and error every time I want to make adjustments to the watering schedule. Now this problem disappears on the RainPoint watering timer, as everything is controlled by the app on my phone. I'll speak a little later on the technical setup, but once I had the water timer controlled by my phone, it became really easy to set my watering schedule. The timer can connect to an outside tap with either a 1-inch or 3/4 inch thread, which are common in the UK. My outside taps both use the 3/4 inch thread, and therefore I needed to use the adapter included with the water timer. The 3/4 inch outside tap adapter is made of plastic. This material is commonly used, but in general I prefer brass fittings. I didn't experience leaks using the tap adapter provided, but it is easy to buy brass fittings if needed. The timer came with PFTE tape, or plumber's tape, that can help to achieve a watertight connection between a tap and a tap adapter. I'm not a big fan of tape. My preference is to use plumber's sealant or jointing compound, but this video is not about how to get a good drip-free connection. I just want to mention there are solutions to getting a watertight connection between a tap and a tap connector. And once the 3/4 inch tap connector is in place, the 1-inch tap connector on top of the water timer is simply screwed onto it. How to create a drip irrigation network is another video in itself, but I do want to show how easy it is to attach a hose to the water timer. One really nice feature is a manual override. By pressing either of the large buttons on the outside of the water timer, it opens the respective zone. Pressing the button again stops the water. That's really convenient. This makes it possible to have one zone connected to a drip irrigation network and the other zone left free to make it easy to fill up a watering can when required. And the final product to look at is the RainPoint Flow Meter. The purpose of the flow meter is to measure water consumption. This data is passed back to the app, making it possible to see not only the water used in one watering job, but also cumulative use of water over a period of time. A notable difference with the water timer is that the flow meter is always open, meaning that as soon as a tap is opened, water will start flowing, and there is no way of stopping the water by using the flow meter. I think the main benefits of the flow meter is to measure water usage when watering without using a watering schedule. For example, watering on hot days using a spray gun attached to a hose, or a sprinkler watering a garden lawn. It allows a gardener to know exactly how much water they are using. The flow meter is powered by 3 AAA batteries that are inserted into the body of the device. To access the compartment, the square body is first removed, and then the 4 crosshead screws that hold the battery compartment cover in place. My experience with screws and water is that they don't mix well, as metal screws can rust and then become very difficult to remove. To be extra cautious and to prevent this happening on the flow meter, I'm going to cover the exposed screws with waterproof tape to keep them in good condition. Unlike the water timer, the flow meter is provided with only a 3/4 inch thread to connect to an outside tap. That was not a problem for me, but a different solution would be needed for a 1-inch thread on an outside tap. The flow meter is easy to attach. First, the tap connector is positioned in place, and then the flow meter has a push-fit fitting to connect to the tap connector. Once everything is connected, every time the tap is open for watering, the amount of water used will be recorded in the app. There is no need to touch the flow meter to turn it on to record data. It will detect the water flow and record automatically. There is also a digital display on the flow meter itself. My first impression is that I think this data is pretty helpful. It should mean I will quickly learn just how much water I'm using when I use my garden hose. Before summing up my first impression of all the products, I want to briefly introduce the technical setup. I'm not going to go into much detail here because the manufacturer has created helpful videos showing how to download and set up the RainPoint app that controls all 3 products. However, I do want to introduce my experience, as I think this may be helpful to others. The first step is to download the RainPoint app. Once installed, I needed to create a new account and set my home location so that the weather information was accurate to where I live. The second step is to get the app to connect to a Wi-Fi network. I think this step has the potential to catch some people out. The app requires a 2.4 GHz frequency Wi-Fi to connect. Now, my Wi-Fi hub at home is dual band, which means I can connect to it at either 2.4 GHz or 5 GHz. However, all my Wi-Fi devices are normally connected at 5 GHz because it's faster. To get the app to work, I needed to change the frequency my phone uses to connect to my Wi-Fi on my home network to 2.4 GHz. Even though the instructions provided by the manufacturer are clear, I think this issue may confuse some people. I don't know if it's possible for the manufacturer to update the product to work on either Wi-Fi frequency. If it is possible, I think that would be helpful. The third step is to pair by Bluetooth the app on my phone to all the products, namely the Display Hub, Water Timer and Flow Meter. The manufacturer provided clear instructions and helpful videos on how to do this. I think anyone familiar with Bluetooth pairing will be fine with this. Nevertheless, because there are 3 devices to do, it took me a few minutes to get everything clear in my head before I got everything to work. Therefore, my summary of the technical setup is that it is straightforward for anybody who is familiar with setting up new Wi-Fi connections and with connecting Bluetooth devices. However, for anyone less familiar with this, they may like to get help from a family member or friend. So, what do I think overall? Well, the RainPoint products have got me excited. I really like the following features. Firstly, using the app to program my drip irrigation schedule, I think is a big step forward. It will save me guessing which buttons to press on my old irrigation timer. Secondly, assuming that the measuring of water consumption is accurate, I think this will allow me to learn how much water I'm using and ultimately find a more efficient way of watering my plants. Or put another way, I think I will end up using less water to get the same results. And thirdly, I really like the convenience of seeing the weather on the Display Hub, and inside the app itself. I can see myself checking this often. What I haven't mentioned so far is that the app offers quite detailed water consumption information and control over the water schedules. This is something I hope to learn more about over the next few weeks. One feature is the ability to easily skip a scheduled watering time, for example, when it's about to rain. This is really easy and convenient to do in the app. I'm not able to say how durable or reliable the products are because I've only had them a few days. I'd want the products to continue to work over a few years, albeit with the occasional battery change. Only time will tell on this, but my first impression is that the build quality seems to be at least equivalent to other products I purchased in the past, and these have lasted reasonably well. And I think the only other consideration is what I mentioned earlier about the technical setup. Once this hurdle is cleared and everything is working as it should, the app offers much greater control over my water usage than I've had before. And that's it. I hope you liked my initial review of RainPoint's Smart Plus garden watering system. If you did, please let me know by hitting the like button or leaving a comment. I try to respond to as many comments as I can. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to the YouTube channel in the usual way. Also, you may like to see my website, allotmentbook.co.uk.